Good day, grade 7 students. Welcome to this subject, Social Studies, 7A and 7B. Your teacher here, Miss Michelle Joy. This serves as a make-up recap class, especially for the students who aren't able to join us virtually. Let's proceed to our online learning discussion now. So class, before we proceed to our online learning discussion, I would like us to have a short review or recap of the last topics that we have discussed, which is about the three types of climate. World climatic zones. Climatic zones are based on the average temperature range and precipitation, rain and snow of an area over an extended period of time. There are three main climatic zones. They are polar, temperate, and tropical. In polar region or polar climate, we have very cold and dry all year round with long winters. In temperate climate, milder temperatures with four seasons, which are autumn, spring, summer, and winter. We also have tropical, which is the last one, hot with lots of rain year round. The world has several climatic zones categorized by the map below. Shade all land between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn, tropical. Shade all land from 23.5 degree north to 66.5 degree north and 23.5 degree south to 66.5 degree south, temperate. Shade all land north of 66.5 degree north and all land south of 66.5 degree south, polar. So this was the topic that we have discussed last Monday afternoon. Now class, let us read about the objectives of the lesson. Number 1, students must be able to know Asia's climate. And number 2, students must be able to know the influence of climate on vegetation growth. So class, at the end of the lesson, I expect that you already know Asia's climate and all the influences or factors of climate on vegetation growth. So class, the topics for today are the following. Three types of climate and influence of climate on vegetation growth. These are the words to learn. Please repeat after me so you can still practice your reading skills and your speaking skills even if you're just at home. Are you ready now? Let's start reading. Number 1, equator. Number 2, distance. Number 3, monsoon. Number 4, influence. And number 5, vegetation. Now let's study these words one by one. Equator means ring, orbit, circle. Equinoctial, ecliptic, equinoctial circle, tropics, zodiac, belt, celestial, equator. So class, equator is actually the imaginary line that circles around the earth. You cannot actually see a line in there, that's why it's called imaginary, but they put this imaginary line in there to easily study about the physical features and the features of the earth. The next one is distance. So distance means space, length, reach, gap, stretch, span, remoteness, interval, way, aloofness. So when you say distance class means the gap between two places, like point A, point B, or the gap between St. Joseph Building or Ave Maria Building. Next is monsoon. Monsoon means downpour, storm, hurricane, cloudburst, tempest, gale, rainstorm, cyclone, deluge, mistral. So when you say monsoon class, it is actually a storm with a very strong wind and heavy rain. Next is influence. When you say influence, it means effect, impact, action, effectiveness, efficacy, penetration, clouds, authority. So influence means the impact of an action or the effects of an action. What is the effect of monsoon? In Bangkok, the effect or impact is flooding. The last word that we have is vegetation, which means flora, growth, greenery, herbage, plants, botany, verdure, vegetable, flower, and plant. These are the 5 words that can help us better understand our topic for today. Let's read them again from numbers 1 to 5. Equator, distance, monsoon, influence, and vegetation.
Weather and climate vary a lot over the planet. In certain places, it's always warm, swimming weather all year round. In other places, though, it's skiing weather all year round. It's cold, sometimes very cold. Some places are dry, others are rainy and wet. What is it that decides this? Most importantly, it's the sunbeams as they hit the surface of the Earth. This beam of sunlight reaches the Earth close to the equator. It hits a small area where it gets hot. Here, close to the poles, each beam of sunlight is spread out over a much larger area, which is not heated as much. This way, the climate becomes warmer the closer to the equator you are. We'll take a journey on the Earth from the equator to the North Pole to see what different climates we encounter on the way from warm to cold. We start in the Congo, in Central Africa. Here we are close to the equator. The sun shines intensely. It gets very hot. When the air gets warm, it becomes lighter and moves higher up in the atmosphere. The water vapor in the air goes with it. Higher up, the air gets cooler. The water vapor becomes small droplets. It starts to rain, which it does almost every day. So, near the equator, it's not only warm, it's humid too. The forests are green and dense and are called rainforests. Now we move north from the equator. Large, plain areas spread out. The vegetation is tall grass and scattered bushes and trees. The climate is drier here, but rain comes in vast amounts during certain periods of the year, rain seasons. This is the savanna. Between them, the rainforests and the savanna make up the tropical climate zone. Now we continue further north. The sun is blazing. Here it is extremely hot and almost nothing grows. How come it's so dry here? Do you remember that the air rises from the equator when the sun shines and it gets hot? That air can't rise forever. When it has reached a certain height in the atmosphere, it moves south or north instead. After a while, it becomes so cool and heavy it starts to sink toward the Earth again. Then lots of air is pressed to the Earth, and high-pressure areas are created. The weather becomes dry and warm, such as in the Sahara Desert. A little further north, we reach the Mediterranean. Here it is dry and very warm in the summer, while the winters are mild and bring more precipitation. This climate zone, with dry, hot and long summers and a short, mild winter, is called the subtropical zone. Further north, it's cooler again. Here we have 4 distinct seasons: spring, summer, autumn and winter. The vegetation is primarily woodland, broadleaf or pine trees. A giant belt of pine forests spread from Scandinavia over Asia and all the way across the North American continent. This is the temperate climate zone. We finish our journey in the very north. It's cold all year round. There are areas here where the ice melts in the summer and allows for a little vegetation to grow, but in the extreme north, the ice is there all year round. This is the polar climate zone. We started our journey in Africa and travelled north through Europe to the North Pole. But it looks about the same if we make a similar journey from the equator to one of the poles in other parts of the world. And therefore we can divide the Earth into 4 climate zones. Closest to the equator, there is the tropical zone. It's warm the whole year round and rains a lot. Some distance from the equator, there is the subtropical zone, with a dry and hot summer and a short, mild winter. The temperate zone has 4 distinct seasons and large forests. And in the polar zone, it's cold with almost no vegetation.
Now, class, let us study about Asia's climate. So, there are different types of climate found in Asia because of the following factors. Number one, its size and location to the equator. So, you can see here polar tundra zone, it's the blue one. We have the cold zone, the sky blue one. Temperate zone, we have the green one. Dry or desert zone, the orange one. And tropical zone, the yellow one. So there are many types of vegetation that are growing in these different types of zone. Well, of course, it depends on the location of your place. Next, distance from the sea of some areas like because Asia is surrounded by Pacific Ocean, Indian Ocean, and Arctic Ocean, the vegetation near this place, especially the tropical ones, are so many because there are lots of water source and of course it's near the equator. So the sunlight is also present there. We also have high mountain ranges and plateau in the central part of Asia and wind and monsoon. So tropical areas or tropical region plus experience wind and monsoon or the heavy rain with very strong wind. So all the vegetation or all these climates are a factor that contributes to the vegetation growth of Asian continent. Now class, let us study the influence of climate on vegetation growth. Climate has influence of vegetation growth. This is because plant growth depends on sunlight, water, nutrient, soil, and temperature. So if you are in a place near a water source and the temperature is not hot, not cold, of course, and with the presence of sunlight, of course, the vegetation is thick like the one here in the picture. Most plants cannot grow where temperatures are below 6 degrees Celsius. Only mosses can. So the plant that is in the picture class is actually a moss, and they grow in a very cold place. They survive in a very cold place. That explains why there are very few or rare plants in the polar region. Class where temperatures are above 20 degrees Celsius, the growth of plants is very high. That's why there are a lot more trees in the temperate and tropical regions because they are near the equator. So it means to say the temperature is above 20 degrees Celsius. They have water source as well and the sunlight as well. So it's no wonder why there are a lot of vegetation growth in temperate and tropical regions. Now class, so many forests are found in areas where rainfall is high, above 1,000 millimeters per year. That's why we have lots of rainfalls here in tropical region or tropical climate. So in this area like Thailand, we have lots of rainforest in here because we are near the equator. Now, the next one class is actually grassland. And in areas like this, rainfall is between 250 millimeter to 1000 millimeter per year. And these are very common in places that are in temperate region or temperate climate. So plus in areas with rainfall at less than 250 millimeter per year or less, hot desert vegetation or tundra, when you say tundra class, it means cold desert vegetation are found. And a plant that can grow in very dry desert areas are cactus, the one that you see in the picture. This kind of plant or vegetation is very common in hot desert. It's not only plant that can survive in here, some animals as well like camels. Okay, class, for the summary of the topics that we have just discussed, it's about Asia's climate. And there are three climates that are in Asia, which are the following: tropical climate, polar climate, and temperate climate. So when you say tropical climate, these areas are near the equator. When you say temperate climate, these areas are in between polar and tropical climates. And the last one, polar climate or polar region, of course, the coldest one, and it's very far away from the equator. Okay, class, for your activity, please do not forget to answer pages 33 and 34 of your social studies book. And please take a picture of your social studies book, pages 33 and 34 after answering the activity. And please do not forget to upload it in social studies album in your line group because I will check it right away. Good luck, everyone, and thank you so much. We now come to the end of our online learning discussion. I hope you have learned something about Asia's climate and the influence that affect the vegetation growth in Asia. Now, class, if you have anything to say or any question that you want to ask, please feel free to call me or send me a message in my personal line account, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you very much and stay safe. I'll see you again next week. Goodbye.